before we begin, I want you to do something for me. I want you to set everything down. Not just your phone, not just the worries of the day, but the whole weight of being you. Set it down gently, like placing something fragile on a soft surface. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let the breath move through you at its own pace, slow and quiet and completely natural. There is nowhere you need to be right now. There's nothing you need to do. For the next 2 hours, you are going to close your eyes and step inside a life that is not yours. And in doing so, you are going to drift further and further away from everything that usually keeps you awake at night. Tonight, you are going to become Napoleon Bonaparte. Not the cartoon figure from history books. Not the diminutive caricature that his enemies invented. The real man. The man who remade the map of Europe with his own hands. The man who woke each morning knowing that the fate of nations rested on the quality of his thinking. Tonight, you will wear his coat. You will feel the weight of his ambitions. You will stand where he stood. Look out at what he looked out at and feel in your chest the particular mixture of greatness and human fragility that defined the most extraordinary military mind the world has ever known. So settle in, pull the blanket a little closer, rest your head a little deeper into the pillow, and let me take you there. You are Napoleon Bonaparte, and you wake before the sun does. This has always been your way. While the rest of the world sleeps, you are already thinking, already planning, already moving pieces across the invisible board of strategy that lives permanently inside your mind. You need no more than 4 hours of sleep, and you have always considered this an advantage, one of the many small gifts that the universe placed in you at birth, as though it knew from the beginning what it was preparing you for. This morning, as on every morning of your campaigns, you open your eyes in the darkness of your campaign tent and lie still for just a moment, not from fatigue, but from habit. These few seconds of stillness are sacred to you. They are the moments in which you review the day ahead, running through it in your mind, the way a musician runs through a composition before the performance. You see the terrain, you see the positions, you feel where the pressure needs to be applied and where it must be withheld. By the time you rise from your cot, the plan is already complete. The day has already been fought and won in the theater of your imagination. You stand, and your valet appears immediately because he has learned to be ready. You are dressed with extraordinary efficiency. The uniform is always the same. The gray overcoat, long and plain and entirely without ornamentation, which has become as recognizable across Europe as any royal crown. Beneath it, the green coat of the chasseurs of the Imperial Guard, the simple bicorn hat placed without ceremony on your dark hair. You have never cared for ostentation in dress. What you wear is not decoration. It is armor of a different kind, a statement that the man beneath the uniform does not require silk to command attention. You are 39 years old in the autumn of 1812. Not tall, though the story of your height has been grotesquely distorted by English propaganda. You stand at 5 feet 6 inches, which is average for your time, your era, your people. But you fill a room in a way that has nothing to do with physical stature. Something lives in your eyes, a quality of absolute concentration, of intelligence so focused it feels almost tactile, that makes generals twice your age instinctively straighten their backs in your presence. You are not imposing because of your body. You are imposing because of the certainty that radiates from you, like heat from a forge. Your mornings in camp are brisk, purposeful, legendary for their efficiency. You eat quickly, almost dismissively, rarely spending more than 20 minutes at meals. Food is fuel. You prefer simple things, roast chicken, which you attack with your hands rather than silverware, lentils, the occasional piece of cheese. You drink wine diluted heavily with water, because a clouded mind is a liability you cannot afford. While you eat, aides read dispatches to you. You interrupt frequently. You dictate responses mid-sentence, your mind moving so fast that the secretaries who serve you must develop almost supernatural shorthand just to keep pace. After breakfast, you walk, always on foot, always brisk, often so brisk that the aides assigned to accompany you must half jog to maintain position. You inspect. You ask questions of ordinary soldiers, not their generals, but the men themselves, the privates, the sergeants, the farriers, and the cooks, because they will tell you things that officers will not. You have an extraordinary memory for faces and names. You can walk through a regiment and recognize a soldier you reviewed 4 years prior, in a different country, under a different sky. You call him by name. You ask about his hometown. The effect on morale is incalculable. You have remade Europe. Let that settle in you for a moment. Feel the weight of it. You, born in Corsica to a family of modest Genoese nobility, speaking French with an accent that your Parisian classmates once mocked, have become the master of a continent. You have fought more than 60 battles. You have lost fewer than a handful. The kingdoms of Europe have fallen before you like dominoes. Italy, Egypt, Austria, Prussia, Spain, Portugal. The great powers that once looked down at France have been humbled, their armies scattered, their rulers dependent on your goodwill, your sister installed as queen in Naples, your brother ruling Spain, your stepson governing Italy. You have not inherited an empire. You have built one, with strategy, with speed, with the absolute refusal to accept the limitations that other men accept as inevitable. And yet, on this particular morning in the autumn of 1812, as you step out of your tent and feel the air on your face, something is different. The air is cold. Not the sharp, clean cold of early autumn that a man can shake off with movement and coffee. This is a different cold, a heavy cold, a cold that seems to rise not from the temperature of the air, but from the ground itself, from the vast Russian earth that stretches in every direction as far as the eye can follow. You breathe it in, and for just a moment, something in your chest that you would never in 1,000 years call by its name presses softly against your certainty. You ignore it. You've always ignored such things. Doubt is a luxury you have never permitted yourself, but it is there. Stand with me for a moment in the past. Let the present cold fade, and let memory warm you instead. Close your eyes if you have not already, and travel back to December of 1805, to a small village in Moravia called Austerlitz. It is the battle you consider your masterpiece, the battle you will still be dreaming about on your deathbed. You are 35 years old, at the absolute peak of your powers, and arrayed against you are the combined forces of the Russian and Austrian empires, commanded by two emperors, Alexander of Russia and Francis of Austria, who have come together with the absolute conviction that they will end you here, in this cold Moravian field, once and for all. They are certain of victory. They outnumber you. They hold the high ground of the Pratzen Heights. Every conventional analysis of the battle suggests that you should lose. Every conventional analysis is about to be proven irrelevant because you have done something that your enemies do not yet understand. You have invited them to believe they are winning. You have deliberately weakened your right flank, making it appear vulnerable, watching as they see the weakness and lean into it, repositioning their forces, abandoning the high ground to pursue what they believe is your exposed side. You have manufactured the illusion of your own vulnerability, and they have walked into it with all the confidence of men who believe they are witnessing your defeat. At the moment you choose, the moment you have calculated with the precision of a clockmaker, you send Marshal Soult and his corps directly up the Pratzen Heights. They move quickly, too quickly for the repositioned Allied forces to respond. In 45 minutes, the heights are yours. The Allied army is divided, and then you close the trap. You remember standing on a low rise, watching through the glass as the Allied formations collapsed into chaos, as an army of 90,000 broke apart like a wave striking rock. The cold Moravian sun was low in the sky, casting everything in pale gold. Your marshals found you afterward with triumph, bright in their faces, and you received their reports with the calm of a man who had already known the outcome before the first shot was fired. Afterward, the soldiers came to you, the ordinary soldiers, with their rough hands and their frost-bitten faces and their voices breaking with exhaustion and pride. They lit torches of straw, hundreds of them, thousands, and held them aloft in the darkness as they paraded past you. And someone began to shout, and then everyone was shouting. And the sound of 60,000 men's voices lifting your name into the Austrian night is something that lives permanently in the body, below thought, below memory, in the place where the most indelible things are kept. That warmth, that sound. Hold it for a moment. Let it fill you the way it filled you then, and then let it slowly fade. Because the autumn of 1812 is not Austerlitz, and the cold standing outside your tent this morning is not the cold of a victorious Moravian December. And deep in the part of yourself that you never permit to speak too loudly, you know that already. Let your breathing slow a little more. You are drifting now, settling deeper, and the story will carry you the rest of the way. Just listen. Just feel. Let it wash over you the way water washes over stone, slowly and completely, and without any effort on your part. The decision to invade Russia did not arrive suddenly. It grew, the way all great decisions grow, from a constellation of pressures and calculations and moments of pride. Tsar Alexander of Russia had been, at various points in the preceding years, your closest ally and your most dangerous adversary. At Tilsit in 1807, you had stood on a raft in the middle of the Niemen River and spoken with him for hours, and there had been something almost like understanding between you, a mutual recognition of two men who had both, through different paths, reached the pinnacle of their world. You had divided Europe between you on that raft, casually, the way other men divide a dinner bill. But the continental system, your great economic weapon against England, the blockade that was supposed to strangle British trade and force her to her knees, required the cooperation of all of Europe. Russia was breaking it. Russian merchants were trading with English ships under neutral flags because they could not afford not to. The Russian economy needed British trade. Alexander knew this. He allowed it. And every English ship that docked at a Russian port was, in your estimation, a direct and deliberate challenge to your authority. You could not allow it, not because of the economics alone, but because of what it meant. You had spent 15 years making the message absolutely clear. There is no power in Europe that does not answer to France. The moment any ruler, no matter how powerful, saw that the system could be defied without consequence, the entire edifice would begin to crack. Authority is only authority so long as it is enforced. You knew this in your bones. So in the spring of 1812, you assembled what you called the Grande Armée, the Great Army. And it was, by any measure in human history to that point, truly great. 685,000 men, drawn from every nation of your empire, French and German and Polish and Italian and Spanish and Dutch and Croatian and Portuguese. The entire military weight of a continent placed behind you for a single campaign. Your generals called it invincible. Your ministers called it overwhelming. Even your critics, and you had always had critics, could not find the words to describe an army of such scale and such diversity, marching under a single commander's vision. You believed, as you had always believed, that the campaign would be swift. Russia was vast, yes. The distances were formidable, yes. But the Russians were not Austrians. They were not the disciplined, battle-hardened professionals of the Prussian tradition. One decisive engagement, one Austerlitz on Russian soil, and Alexander would come to the table. The war would last no more than 20 days. You had campaigned in haste before and succeeded. Speed was your instrument. Hesitation was the enemy. You did not seriously consider what would happen if the Russians refused to fight. Let that settle, like a stone dropping slowly through deep water. You did not seriously consider what would happen if they simply moved away from you. Your breathing is slower now. Good. Let each breath carry you a little further from the surface of waking, a little deeper into this world. You are doing beautifully. Just let the story hold you. On the 24th of June, 1812, you stood on the western bank of the Niemen River and watched your army cross into Russia. It took 3 days for the full army to cross. 3 days of watching, column after column, of men and horses and artillery and supply wagons filing over the pontoon bridges you had ordered constructed. The sound of it was immense. The deep, rhythmic percussion of 600,000 boot heels on wooden planking. The creak and strain of the bridges under the weight of cannon. the clatter of cavalry crossing in formation, the low, constant murmur of hundreds of thousands of men moving in coordinated purpose. It was the sound of history being made, and you knew it. And the knowing was extraordinary. You crossed on horseback, and as you reached the Russian bank, your horse stumbled, and you were thrown to the ground. Your aides rushed to you immediately. You were unhurt. You rose and brushed yourself off and remounted before anyone could make anything of it. But you saw the looks. You saw the way the nearest officers and soldiers glanced at each other in that brief second before they composed their faces into appropriate blankness. In Roman tradition, a commander falling at the moment of crossing into enemy territory was a terrible omen. Your soldiers knew this tradition. Many of them were superstitious men in the way that men who live close to death tend to become superstitious. They had heard the stories. They believed in signs. You did not believe in signs. You believed in calculation, in preparation, in the iron logic of strategy applied with sufficient speed and force. Omens were for men who lacked the confidence to make their own fate. And yet, as you rode forward into Russia for the first time, and the vast Russian landscape opened before you, something about the quality of the silence ahead made you adjust your grip slightly on the reins. Russia was quiet in a way that Europe was not quiet. European silence had texture, had presence, had the sense of nearby habitation and human activity just beyond hearing. The Russian silence was different. It was enormous. It was a silence that seemed to have been there before human beings arrived and would be there long after they were gone. The land stretched before you in every direction without horizon, a flat, endless, indifferent immensity of green and brown and distant shadow. And for just a moment you felt something you had not felt since you were a young military cadet in Paris, being mocked for your Corsican accent and your poverty. You felt small. You rode forward. You did not speak of it to anyone. You never did. You are drifting now, drifting beautifully. Your body is heavy and warm. The story is around you like a landscape, and you are moving through it slowly, effortlessly, without any particular destination except deeper sleep. Just let the words carry you. There's nothing to hold on to. Let go. The Russians would not fight you. This was the thing that no one in your planning had adequately accounted for. Kutuzov, the old Russian field marshal, a man of legendary stubbornness and deep strategic patience, had developed a response to your invasion that defied every convention of European warfare. Instead of meeting you, he moved away from you. Instead of defending the towns and villages of Western Russia, he abandoned them, burning what he could not take with him, poisoning the wells, destroying the granaries, leaving you to march deeper and deeper into a country that was methodically erasing itself ahead of your advance. The land through which you marched was enormous and hot in the summer, and then warm, and then merely not cold, and the columns stretched for hundreds of kilometers behind you, and the supply lines grew longer and longer and thinner and thinner. You had been confident that the army would live partly off the land, as your armies always did, but there was no land to live off. There were no full granaries, no fat cattle in the fields, no stores of hay for the horses. There were only burnt villages and scorched earth and the vast Russian silence where you had expected to find an enemy. Horses began to die early. You had brought with you over 150,000 horses, cavalry mounts, artillery horses, supply wagon horses, officers' horses, and the Russian summer proved brutally hard on them. The grass was different. The water was different. Disease spread through the herds with appalling speed. Dead horses began to appear along the roadsides within weeks of the crossing. And then they began to appear in clusters, and then in rows. And the army that marched past them grew quieter as the weeks passed, and the columns grew shorter, and the supply wagons grew lighter. You pushed forward because that was what you did. Stopping felt like defeat. Turning back was unthinkable. You had assembled the greatest army in the history of warfare, and you had put it in motion, and motion was all you understood. You rode among the columns, and you maintained your composure because your composure was the composure of the army. The soldiers looked to you to see what to feel about what was happening. And what they saw in your face was certainty, patience, the expression of a man who knows something his subordinates do not yet know. But inside the certainty, in the very center of it, where no one was permitted to look, a question had begun to form. What if the decisive battle never comes? You pushed the question down. You rode faster. You told your marshals to press the advance. Moscow was ahead. Moscow was the prize. Take Moscow and Alexander would have no choice. Take Moscow and the campaign would end as all your campaigns ended, with you in control of the terms, and your enemies arranging themselves around your will. Forward. Always forward. Let your muscles release a little more. If there is anywhere in your body that is holding tension, anywhere that has not yet fully let go, breathe into it now and let it soften. You are safe. You are warm. The story is holding you. Just listen. On the 7th of September, 1812, 70 miles west of Moscow, Kutuzov finally turned and offered battle. The Battle of Borodino. You have fought many battles. You have stood on many fields and felt the particular electricity of a day on which history will be decided. But Borodino is different from the first moments in a way you cannot quite name. The Russian army takes a position along a ridge and simply refuses to move. They build earthwork fortifications, these great earthen redoubts they call fletches, and they pack them with artillery, and they wait. The battle begins at dawn with a thunderous artillery exchange, the largest you have ever witnessed. Hundreds of guns on both sides firing simultaneously, and the sound is so immense that it seems to reshape the air itself, to make the ground beneath your feet tremble with something deeper than vibration, something closer to a fundamental alteration of the morning. The smoke rises immediately, and within an hour visibility is almost nothing, and the battle you are commanding becomes a battle fought in a fog of your own army's making, guided by sound and report and the compass of your experience, rather than the evidence of your eyes. Your marshals attack. Davout, Ney, Murat with his cavalry. They throw themselves at the Russian positions again and again with the ferocity of men who have known nothing but victory for a decade, and the Russians hold. That is the extraordinary thing, the thing that you feel in your chest with a peculiar resonance. The Russians hold. They are pushed back from position to position. They suffer casualties that would break any Western European army, and they reform and hold again. They are not fighting with the tactical elegance of your armies. They are fighting with something rawer than elegance, something that has more in common with geology than with military science. They are simply there, enormous and immovable, and willing to absorb whatever you send at them. By midday, you hold a great redoubt in the center of the Russian line. Your men have taken it at appalling cost over the bodies of their own dead, in fighting so close and so brutal that soldiers on both sides have run out of ammunition and continued fighting with bayonets and stones and their bare hands. You hold the central position of the Russian line, and Kutuzov's army is battered, and now is the moment when in every previous battle you have delivered the final blow, the decisive punch that collapses the enemy completely. The moment you call for the Imperial Guard. You do not call for them. Your marshals ask you. Ney asks you, his face covered in powder smoke, and something close to desperation. Murat asks you. They tell you the moment is now, that one more push, the Guard committed to the center, and the Russian army breaks. You look through your glass at the Russian positions, and at the Guard standing in reserve behind you, 15,000 of your finest soldiers, fresh and ready. And you make a decision that will haunt every account of this day for as long as history is written. You say no. You cannot replace the Guard if you lose them. You are 1,500 kilometers from France. If the Guard is destroyed here and the campaign extends further, you will have nothing left in reserve. You are thinking beyond this battle. You are thinking about what comes after. It is, by any careful analysis, a reasonable decision. A conservative decision made by a man who is, for the first time in his military career, thinking primarily about risk rather than opportunity. Night falls on a battlefield that holds the bodies of over 70,000 men, Russian and French, the wounded crying in the darkness between the lines. And when the morning comes, Kutuzov withdraws his army eastward, and you are left in possession of the field. You have won, technically in the accounting of territory held and flags captured. You have won the Battle of Borodino, but Kutuzov's army is intact, and Moscow is still 40 miles ahead, and you have just lost 30,000 men you cannot replace. It is the first time in your life that victory has felt like something else entirely. You are very deep now. Your breathing is slow and steady. The world you woke up in this morning is far away. There's only this, only the story, only the cold Russian autumn, and the sound of a great army moving forward through a landscape that does not want it. Let your eyes stay closed. Let the weight of your body sink further into whatever is holding you. You are completely safe. Just drift. You enter Moscow on the 14th of September, 1812. Or rather, your army enters Moscow, because Moscow, which should have received you the way every European capital has received you, with delegations and keys and the elaborate theater of surrender, is simply not there. Not the people of it. The buildings are there, the streets are there, the Kremlin with its extraordinary cluster of churches and towers and golden domes is there, gleaming in the September sunlight, with a beauty that makes several of your generals audibly exhale, but the people are gone. Kutuzov and the Russian governor Rostopchin had ordered the evacuation, not just of the army, of the people, of virtually the entire civilian population of one of the largest cities in the world. Moscow, a city of 250,000 people, has been emptied, and what remains is the architecture of a city without its soul. The streets are silent in a way that streets are never silent when there are people living in them. Shop fronts are shuttered. Churches are locked. The great houses of the nobility stand with their doors hanging open and their interiors stripped of everything valuable and everything portable. You ride through these streets, and the sound of your horse's hooves on the cobblestones echoes with a loneliness that is not metaphorical. It is actual, physical, the loneliness of sound that has no other sound to answer it. You reach the Kremlin, and you stand in its courtyard, and you look up at the towers of Ivan the Great and the great Cathedral of the Assumption, and you wait for what is supposed to happen next. A delegation should come. Boyars, city officials, someone carrying the keys of the city on a velvet cushion, the way they do in every city of every country you have ever entered as a conqueror. You have done this so many times that it feels like a ceremony you could perform in your sleep. The dignified receipt of surrender, the magnanimous words, the immediate orders for the city's protection. No one comes. You wait. The afternoon light moves across the Kremlin's golden domes. An aide offers you food, and you wave it away. You wait, because surely someone will come. Surely there is someone left in this city who represents its surrender. Surely the theater of victory will perform itself the way it always performs itself. No one comes. That night, from the windows of the Kremlin, you watch the fires begin. Breathe. Just breathe. Long and slow and completely without effort. You are doing so well. You are so deep now. So far from the surface. The story is all around you, warm and dark and complete. Let it hold you. There is nowhere else to be. The fires of Moscow begin on the night of September 14th, and they burn for 5 days. Rostopchin had ordered it before evacuating. He had sent men through the city with instructions to torch the warehouses, the supply depots, the wooden houses that made up the majority of Moscow's residential buildings. Some accounts say it was systematic, carefully planned, the ultimate expression of the scorched earth strategy that Kutuzov had employed from the beginning. Some accounts say it was chaotic, that fires spread beyond any plan, that the wind took what the arsonists started and transformed it into something beyond human management. What is certain is this: Moscow burned. You watch from the Kremlin, and the fire is not a small thing you can look at without emotion. It is enormous. In a city built largely of wood, fed by autumn winds that arrive from the east with a coldness just beginning to show its teeth, the fire moves with a speed and scale that transforms the night into a hellish orange daylight. You can feel the heat from the Kremlin walls, even at this distance. The sky above Moscow for a radius of many kilometers is lit from below, amber and red and terrible. And the smell is the smell of an entire civilization, burning. Wood and cloth and leather and food and all the accumulated material of centuries of human habitation, rising in smoke into the Russian night, you are forced to evacuate the Kremlin. The fires come too close, sparks landing on the Kremlin's wooden structures, and your staff insists, and for once you do not argue. You move to a palace outside the city and you watch from there. And what you watch is the destruction of the prize you came 1,500 kilometers to claim. The warehouses of supplies that might have sustained your army through a Russian winter are burning. The shelter that Moscow's buildings would have provided to your men is burning. The symbol of victory that was supposed to force Alexander to the negotiating table is burning. The city that was supposed to end the campaign is ending something else entirely. You stand at the window of the palace and you watch, and those around you, your closest aides, the men who have learned to read you the way you read a map, watch you watching. And what they see in your face as the fires of Moscow fill, the sky is something none of them have seen there before. They see uncertainty, not panic, not despair. You are not built for those, but uncertainty. The first genuine uncertainty you have displayed in 15 years of command sits in the lines around your mouth and in the quality of your stillness as the greatest city of Russia burns and your army stands in the firelight, not knowing what comes next. Let your thoughts grow quieter now. Like the fire, let them burn down to embers, to the soft orange glow of something winding toward stillness. You do not need to think. You do not need to understand. You only need to let the story move through you, like water moving through a riverbed, finding its own path without your help. You stay in Moscow for 35 days. This will be judged by history as perhaps the single most consequential strategic error of your career. And the judgment is probably correct. But you must understand why you stay. You stay because leaving means admitting that the campaign has failed. You stay because somewhere in you there's still the belief, growing thinner by the day but not yet entirely gone, that Alexander will negotiate, that the burning of Moscow, the loss of his most beloved city, will force him to a table that you so desperately need him at. You send letters, 3 of them over the course of the month, each addressed to Tsar Alexander, each written with carefully calibrated tone, neither too pleading nor too demanding. The letters of a man who knows he holds a weak hand but is determined to play it with dignity. The letters travel through the vast Russian distances toward St. Petersburg. No reply comes, not rejection, not counterproposal, just silence. Alexander's silence is his strategy, and it is working. Every day that passes with you in Moscow is a day the Russian winter grows closer. Every day you wait for a negotiation that never comes is a day your army grows weaker and your supply lines grow more precarious, and the window of safe retreat shrinks. Your men are struggling. You walk among them as you always have, but the conversations are different now. They are patient, these men, as soldiers who trust their commander tend to be. But patience has a texture to it, and the texture of their patience is changing. In the early weeks, it was the patience of men who believe they are waiting for something specific, for the next order, the next advance, the next decisive engagement that will end the campaign. Now it is the patience of men who have begun to wonder if there is something specific to wait for. They do not say this to you. They compose their faces when you approach. But you have spent your life reading the unspoken things, and you read this one clearly. The temperature begins to drop. Not catastrophically yet, not with the violence of what is coming, but with an insistence that is impossible to ignore. The mornings acquire a sharpness. The ground begins to harden. The streams and puddles acquire a thin skim of ice that thickens each day at a rate that anyone who has spent a winter in Northern Europe would find alarming. Your quartermaster brings you figures you do not like. The horses remaining are not enough to move all the artillery. The food stocks, what was not destroyed in the fire, what was found in cellars and suburbs and surrounding estates, are diminishing faster than projected. The road south toward Kaluga, which would take you through country not yet stripped by your passage, is the better retreat route. You begin to think about it. You do not yet admit that you are thinking about retreat, but you are thinking about it. Your breathing is so slow now, so steady, like the tide moving over a wide, flat shore, in and out, unhurried and complete. You are very far from waking. The story has carried you a long way. Just a little further. Let it take you all the way. On the 19th of October, 1812, you give the order to abandon Moscow. The army that moves out through Moscow's gates is not the army that marched in. Over the weeks of occupation, in the strange moral vacuum of an enemy city without enemies, discipline has eroded. Soldiers have looted. Not all of them, not even most of them, but enough that the army carries with it as it retreats a quantity of plunder entirely disproportionate to its military purpose. Wagons that should carry ammunition and food carry silver candelabra and Persian rugs and paintings cut from frames. Soldiers carry things they cannot possibly transport any meaningful distance and will eventually, inevitably, have to abandon. The irony is not lost on you. They came here to fight, and they ended up as thieves, and now they are leaving as refugees. The temperature on the morning you depart Moscow is cold. Not impossibly cold. Just cold in the particular way of Russian October, with a sky the color of pewter, and a wind that arrives from the east, carrying the advance messages of what is coming from that direction. You mount your horse and you look back at the city one last time, at the burnt ruins of what was supposed to be the crown of the campaign, and you turn your face east and give the order to move. You try the southern route first, toward Kaluga, toward country your army has not already stripped. Kutuzov's forces block you at Maloyaroslavets, and the fighting is fierce and indeterminate, neither side achieving a decisive result. And you stand on a ridge above the battle and watch, and the calculation you run in your mind is very different from the calculations you used to run. Before, you calculated how to win. Now you are calculating what is acceptable to lose. The road south is not worth the cost. You turn the army north onto the road you came in on, the road already stripped of everything useful, the road lined with the evidence of your army's passage in the form of dead horses and abandoned equipment. You are retreating. You have not used the word. You have called it a strategic repositioning, a movement to winter quarters in the west, an adjustment of operational priorities. But your veterans know what it is. They have never done it before, not like this, not with this quality of necessity behind it. They follow because you are still you, still the man whose name has been their talisman for a decade, still the figure around whom their sense of military identity is organized. But something has shifted between you and them, something subtle and not yet definitive, a change in the quality of the air between a commander and his men that experienced soldiers know how to read. They follow you, but they follow you into the cold. You are almost there now, almost at the place of deepest sleep. Let your body be completely heavy. Let your thoughts be almost nothing, just wisps, just the edges of the story, just the cold and the white and the slow movement of men through an indifferent landscape. You are so close. Just let go. The temperature drops with a violence that seems almost personal. On the 6th of November, 1812, winter arrives in Russia, and it does not arrive gradually. Overnight, the temperature plunges to minus 15 degrees Celsius, then to minus 20, then further. The cold that blankets your army is not the cold that any of them have known before. Most of your soldiers are from France, from Italy, from Spain, from Germany, from the Mediterranean world where winter is cold but comprehensible. Cold that a man with adequate clothing and food can manage. What arrives on the Russian road in November of 1812 is something of a different category entirely. It is the cold of a place that has spent its geological history being cold, that has evolved its climate over millions of years to produce temperatures that human physiology was not designed to survive without very specific preparation. Your army does not have the preparation. The first thing that stops working is the equipment. The flintlock mechanisms of the muskets freeze in temperatures this low, the lubricating oil congealing into something closer to wax, the metal contracting in ways that prevent the firing mechanism from functioning. Soldiers try to fire their weapons and find that they cannot. The artillery is worse. Axles freeze. Carriages split in the cold. The horses needed to pull the guns collapse and die, not from starvation alone, not from cold alone, but from the interaction of both. The catastrophic compound effect of working animals that are already weakened by insufficient food, being subjected to temperatures that steal the remaining warmth from their bodies faster than any food could replenish it. Soldiers begin to die in the nights, not in combat, not from wounds. They sit down beside the road to rest, and they do not get up again, because the cold that was already at minus 20 drops further in the darkness, and their exhausted bodies do not have enough metabolic heat remaining to fight it. In the morning, the men who pass them on the road see figures frozen in postures of rest, men who died so quietly in the night that no one nearby woke to notice. These figures, the road's dead, accumulate with each passing day, and the army that passes them is changed by what it sees, altered at some fundamental level by the knowledge that death in this campaign comes not from a Russian musket ball, but from simply stopping for too long. You ride among them. You maintain your composure because you must, but you have stopped the morning walks, the casual conversations with ordinary soldiers, the deliberate displays of connection that have always been among your most powerful tools of command, partly because the cold makes extended time in the open genuinely dangerous, even for you. But partly because what you would see in their faces if you looked too closely is something you are not yet prepared to see. You are no longer leading an army. You are trying to save the remnant of one. Deep, now, so deep. The story is almost a dream, and you are almost a dream within it. Napoleon, the frozen road, the empire falling away behind a general who does not yet fully know it. All of it is soft at the edges now, the way all things become soft at the threshold of sleep. Just let it happen. You are allowed to let it happen. What breaks first is not the army. It is the idea of the army. An army is not, in the end, a collection of weapons and horses and supply wagons. It is an agreement. It is the shared agreement of tens of thousands of individuals to function as a single organism, to subordinate personal survival instinct to collective purpose, to trust the structure above them in exchange for the structure's implicit promise to justify that trust. When that agreement breaks down, when the collective organism begins to atomize back into individual human beings, making individual decisions about their own survival, what you have is no longer an army. You have a crowd, a frightened, cold, starving crowd moving in approximately the same direction. The discipline that made the Grande Armée the finest fighting force in the world dissolves in the Russian November. Not all at once, not completely. There are units, whole regiments, that maintain their cohesion with extraordinary determination, held together by the quality of their officers and the iron of their regimental pride. The Imperial Guard, the Old Guard especially, march in formation to the end, presenting an almost surreal image of military order against the backdrop of universal chaos. But around them, the army frays. Soldiers abandon their units in search of food. Officers lose track of their men in blizzards and cannot find them again. Formations that should be thousands strong dwindle to hundreds. The horses are gone. By mid-November, almost every horse in the army has died of cold, of starvation, of the combination that is more lethal than either alone. Without horses, the artillery cannot move. You make the order that breaks you to give. Even now, abandon the guns. The artillery that has been the backbone of every campaign you have ever fought. The instrument of your tactical genius. The thing that your enemies have learned to fear above all else must be spiked and left by the road because there is nothing left to pull it. Soldiers walk past abandoned cannon, half buried in snow, and they look at them with a peculiar expression. Something between grief and incomprehension. You have eaten the horses by now. The cavalry that entered Russia as the most magnificent mounted force in European history is walking, and it is eating its horses to stay alive. And the sight of cavalry soldiers walking in the snow past the ruins of their own mounts is one of the images that will define this campaign in the memory of Europe for generations. The word that circulates among the soldiers, quietly, not yet in your presence, but present in every other conversation, is the word they have never needed to use before. The word that has never applied to you, never been associated with your armies. The word that feels almost impossible in your context. Defeat. You are almost entirely asleep now. The words are becoming landscape, becoming sensation, becoming the kind of thing you feel rather than hear. The cold of Russia is distant from you, the way all difficult things become distant in sleep. You are warm. You are held. Just the faintest thread of story left to follow, and then nothing but rest. The landscape through which what remains of your army moves is unlike any landscape in the world. Russia, in deep winter, is white. Not the white of a fresh snowfall in a European city, the kind that is beautiful for a day and then trampled into gray slush by the life of the city continuing around it. This is a different white. It is the white of a world that has been remade by cold, that has been simplified by winter into a single color and a single quality of light, flat and diffuse and directionless, coming from everywhere and nowhere. There are no shadows in this landscape when the sky is overcast, which is most of the time. There is no horizon in the conventional sense, because the white of the land blends into the white of the sky at a point that is more suggestion than definition. Men who have been marching for weeks lose their ability to gauge distance, to tell how far they have come and how far they have to go. The landscape offers no feedback. It absorbs everything: footsteps, voices, the creak of the few remaining wagons, and gives back only its own vast indifference. You ride through this white world and you think about Paris. You do not permit yourself to think about Paris as a destination. Not yet. Not quite. Because that would be an admission too large to fully make. But you think about its quality of air, its particular combination of rain and stone, and the smell of bread from bakeries, and the sound of the Seine. You think about Josephine, from whom you divorced 2 years ago for political reasons that still feel correct, and yet carry a particular weight today. In this white world, where political correctness seems less relevant than it has ever seemed, you think about your son, the King of Rome, born in March and not yet a year old, whom you have seen only briefly. You think about the throne you built for him, the Europe you remade for him, the inheritance you were constructing with every campaign and every victory. The inheritance is retreating through Russia in minus 30 degrees Celsius and dying on the road. You do not share these thoughts with anyone. They are the thoughts of a man, not of an emperor. And you have long since learned that being seen as a man rather than an emperor has consequences you cannot afford. So you ride forward through the white world, and your face is composed, and your eyes are directed ahead, and no one who watches you knows what is happening in the interior. But something is happening. Something is shifting, slowly, the way seasons shift, not in a single moment, but across 1,000 small moments that only reveal their accumulated direction in retrospect. The certainty is not gone. It will not fully leave you until much later, until after Waterloo, until the island. But it has a quality now it did not have before. It has a hollow at its center, a quiet, cold, Russian hollow, shaped roughly like the question you will not ask aloud. What if I was wrong? Almost there. The softest part of sleep is just ahead, the part where even the story becomes something like music, something you feel moving through you without needing to follow it. Let your mind go. wherever it goes, you are so close to the deepest rest. The story will carry itself now. You just need to let go. The Berezina River is the last catastrophe. On the 26th of November, your army arrives at the Berezina and finds it not frozen solid as it should be by this point in November, but in a state of partial freeze, the ice too thin and too uncertain to cross safely, the water too cold and too fast to ford on foot. On the eastern bank are the survivors, the tens of thousands of men, soldiers and civilians and camp followers, and the wives and children who had attached themselves to the army, all of them pressing toward the river and what lies beyond it. The West, safety, the end of Russia. They are exhausted and frostbitten, and very many of them are beyond rational calculation in their desperation to cross. On the western bank, your engineers work in the icy water, standing chest deep in temperatures that kill a man in minutes, constructing makeshift pontoon bridges from the inadequate materials available. They work in shifts, spelling each other when the cold becomes unendurable. And the bridges they build are not strong enough and not wide enough for what will be required of them. But they are what there is. When the bridges open, what happens is not an organized military crossing. It is a press of human desperation. Everyone moves at once, soldiers and civilians together, cavalry pushing through infantry, wounded men on wagons adding their weight to structures already at their limit. The bridges flex and groan. In the chaos, one of them collapses, and the people on it go into the Berezina, and the screaming of those going into the water and the screaming of those watching them go is the sound that will stay with the survivors of this campaign longer than any other sound, longer than the artillery at Borodino, longer than the wind across the Russian steppe, the particular human sound of people understanding that they are going to die in cold water, while other people stand close enough to touch them and cannot save them. You stand on the western bank and watch. There is nothing else to do. The crossing takes 2 days. When it is over, between 10 and 15,000 people have died at the Berezina, drowned or frozen or crushed in the panic. And what crosses safely is a further reduced remnant of the army that left Moscow 5 weeks before. You look at what crosses, you say nothing. You ride west. Now you are there. The threshold of deep sleep is right here, right beneath you, and you are going to sink into it, gently and completely. Just a little more, just these last slow words, and then rest. The understanding comes gradually, not as a revelation, not as a single moment of clarity, but as the slow accumulation of evidence that even the most committed certainty cannot continue to deny. You began this campaign with 685,000 men. You will return from it with fewer than 100,000. The numbers mean something that goes beyond military arithmetic. They mean that the army you spent a decade building, the instrument through which you remade Europe, no longer exists in any meaningful sense. It can be rebuilt. You will try to rebuild it. But the men who fought at Austerlitz and Jena and Wagram and Borodino, the veterans who knew your methods by instinct, who trusted your command with the absolute trust of men who have watched it, proved right 100 times. Those men are in the Russian snow, and they cannot be replaced. You think about this as you ride west, as the Russian landscape gradually gives way to Poland and then to Germany, and then to the France you left in the spring of last year with the world at your feet. You think about it in the way you think about everything, systematically, strategically, searching for the configuration of moves that will repair the damage, reconstruct the position, return you to the condition of advantage. And for the first time in your life, you cannot find it. The damage is too large. The losses are too great. The confidence of Europe in your invincibility is the casualty of this campaign that no strategic rearrangement can simply restore. The continent that bowed to you because it believed you could not be beaten now knows that you can be. That knowledge, once released into the world, cannot be recalled. It will spread to every court and every parliament and every general's tent in Europe. And when it arrives, it will give courage to people who were previously afraid. And that courage will have consequences. You know this. You understand it completely. You have always understood power and its relationship to the perception of power. And you understand now with painful clarity what the Russian campaign has done to the perception of yours. You ride west through the December cold, and you are already planning, already calculating, already thinking about the army you will raise in the spring, the campaign you will fight, the way you will restore what had been lost. Because you are Napoleon Bonaparte, and the alternative to planning the next move is the admission that there is no next move, and that admission is not one you are capable of making. Not yet. Not for several years more. Not until a field in Belgium called Waterloo, and a rock in the South Atlantic called St. Helena, and a bed on which you will die at 51, speaking French in the darkness, calling out names that history will record, but only you will ever truly understand. But that is later. For now, you ride west. The cold is at your back. Russia is behind you, enormous and white, and utterly indifferent to the hundreds of thousands of souls it has swallowed this year. Ahead is France and Paris and the throne and the million problems of empire, and the need, always the need, to plan the next move. The cold stays with you. That is the truth of it. Even after you cross out of Russia, even after the temperature rises and the snow gives way to the mud of Poland, and eventually to the rain of Germany and the green of the Rhine Valley, the cold stays with you. Not in your body, but somewhere deeper, in the part of you that has always known, beneath every certainty, that the universe is larger than your plans for it, in the part of you that felt small just for a moment on the eastern bank of the Niemen, before you pushed the feeling down and rode forward into the vast Russian silence. You will never entirely push it down again. Part 16, the soft ending. And now, slowly, let Napoleon go. Let him ride west into his complicated future, carrying his cold and his plans and his brilliant damage certainty. He does not need you anymore. He has the rest of his story ahead of him, and it is not a simple story, and it is not a happy ending, but it is his, completely and fully his, and he will live it with the same intensity with which he lived everything. You, on the other hand, have nowhere to go tonight except deeper. Let the Russian landscape dissolve. Let the white and the cold and the distant sound of an army in retreat fade into the simple warmth of where you are right now. Feel the weight of the blanket or the sheet or whatever is over you. Feel the surface beneath you, holding you completely, effortlessly, without requiring anything of you in return. Feel the temperature of the air around you, the right temperature, the safe temperature, the temperature of a place built for human beings to rest. You have traveled a long way tonight. You have walked in the boots of one of the most extraordinary human beings who ever lived, and you have felt something of what he felt, the pride and the cold and the slow, terrible understanding that even the greatest of human plans meets eventually the limits of what human beings can control. And perhaps there is something in that for you, something you can carry back with you when you wake. Not a lesson exactly, just a feeling. The feeling of a man who built an empire and learned at enormous cost that some things cannot be taken by force or strategy or will, however brilliant, that some things require a different kind of surrender. The cold is gone now. There's only warmth. The army is gone. There's only stillness. Napoleon is gone. There's only you, sinking, drifting, completely held, completely safe, moving through the last thin layer of almost sleep into the place below it that has been waiting for you this whole time. Some battles are not lost in a single moment, but some rests begin precisely at the moment you stop fighting. This is that moment. Sleep now. Just sleep. The night is long and quiet and completely yours. There is nothing to plan, nothing to decide, nothing to fear. The cold cannot reach you here. The distance cannot reach you here. There's only the dark and the warmth and the slow, steady, absolute peace of a mind that has finally set everything down. Sleep.